Welcome to the broadcast. My name is John Mayfield, the real estate tech guy, and we're going to do a quick webinar on how to terminate an agency. Well, first of all, thanks for joining the broadcast. And if you're watching this from our YouTube channel, please be sure and like or subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can even click on the little alarm button, and every time I go live, you'll be notified, or when we post a new content. That way you can go right out there and check out all of the great content we have here at Global Real Estate School. Also, if you're listening to this via podcast or on one of our other social media channels, you've got to go out to YouTube, look up Global Real Estate School, and subscribe. We've got some great playlists where I'm doing 5-minute real estate exam tips. I just did a 5-minute real estate exam tip prior to this meeting, and I'm trying to do some other short, focused keyword webinars. I've got a little webinar I'm doing on top 10 questions you might see on the real estate exam. We'll do some other crash course webinars for those people who want a crash course the night before, which I don't recommend, but we're trying to do a lot of different things to help you pass the real estate exam, and our content is national specific, so it doesn't matter what state you are in. We're covering national information, and I am doing some state specific items, but we'll throw those in the playlist, and you'll always know when I'm doing a state specific webinar from that perspective. Well, let's get right into the webinar. We want to talk about how to terminate an agency. And so I'm going to just come right over here and let you take a look at several ways that you can terminate an agency. And the first one, naturally, is by death or incapacity. And now the key words here, and we've got to remember that, is the broker or the principal. We've really talked about this over and over, and if you're watching and listening to my podcast or broadcast, you know that listing agreements and buyer agency agreements are between the broker and the client, or the principal, as we say here. So don't get sucked into thinking the salesperson is the owner of that listing agreement or that buyer's agency agreement. They just go out and they get the contract for the broker, and then the legality of that is that contract is between the broker and the client. Now, just so you'll understand, in my office, I give my agents permission to sign for the broker. I have that in my policy and procedures manual, have that in the contract with the agents. So when they go out to get a listing, they sign the listing Mayfield Real Estate Inc. by John Mayfield. Now again, I've given them permission to sign my name. In Missouri, that is permissible. Be sure and check with each state that you have. But here's what I want you to understand. Those listings that the sales associates go out and get are between who? They are between the broker and the client. And we also studied that a buyer's agency agreement carries the same weight as a listing agreement. So one of the things I want to go over here, and you need to understand, is that if the broker dies, it terminates the listing, doesn't it? If the client dies, the listing's terminated. Sometimes I've had some really good listings, and I just knew they were going to sell, and I was one of those where I was counting my commission check before it had the property had closed, and literally, unfortunately, the sellers passed away and the listings were void because the client died and the heirs did not want to sell the property. So listings are always between the broker and the client, and death or incapacity. In other words, if they're in a coma or something like that, it would terminate the listing. And of course, notice is not required to terminate. In fact, I remember one of the listings that I had and the client died. I mean, they just pulled my sign up out of the yard and told me to come and get it, but they didn't have to tell me their dad, or I can't remember who it was, that their family member died. The listing I had was between that seller and the brokerage, or my brokerage, and when the seller died, the listing was void. Okay? Notice to terminate was not required. Destruction or condemnation of the property. In other words, if the state takes the property, that would terminate an agency. Again, we're looking at how do you terminate an agency? Condemnation, the state takes it, or destruction. The light is a little bright, so I'm going to get a quick drink of water, but I want to tell you a story here. I had a listing that was in the verge of the state possibly taking the property, but they didn't know. And so I went ahead and listed the property, and I told the sellers, this is one of the things I learned from my going back to get my broker's license, is that we can go on and you can go on and list the property, and if the state decides to purchase your property, it would automatically terminate my listing agreement. Well, come to find out, the state decided not to pursue, it was actually the city government, decided not to pursue purchasing the property through or exercise their condemnation. And so I was able to sell the property and get it sold. What I want you to understand is anytime someone may say to you, well, the city's thinking about taking the property or buying it, they can still go on and list the property. You would need to disclose that to any potential future purchasers, but you could go on and list the property, and if the condemnation went through, it would terminate the listing, it would make it void. Now, destruction, fire would also, hurricane, earthquake, any kind of destruction to the property would terminate an agency, okay? Of course, expiration of agreement. When it expires, it terminates. You could have termination by mutual agreement of all the parties. You could have a termination by abandonment. Let's say the broker disappears and no one can find the broker and you don't know where the broker's at. You've tried to contact them. That would be constituted as abandonment and it would terminate a listing. Also by court order. So if the principal, the client, files bankruptcy, that would terminate the agency agreement. And the final way that an agency can be terminated is through fulfillment. If you're a buyer's agency agreement, you found them a home. So you fulfilled the agreement, you closed on the property. If it's a seller, you sold the property. So these types of ways that an agency can be terminated, you need to know for the real estate exam, very important for you. So I'm going to put those back up again and we'll go back through them. Death or incapacity of either the broker or the principal, destruction of the property or condemnation, that's when the government takes the property. When the agency agreement expires, mutual agreement, hey, John, I'd like to get out of my listing agreement. Sure, it's not a problem. I had that happen recently. A guy needed to rent his house. He needed the income. I had a listing agreement. He wanted to get out of his listing contract. I voided it, canceled it, and so mutually we both agreed. Abandonment, one of the brokers leaves. I've seen that actually happen in my area where brokers just left in the middle of the night. Nobody knew where they went. Their listings could be void. You might have to go to court or seek legal counsel, but just understand abandonment by either party would terminate an agency. Court order, if you file bankruptcy, the property gets transferred into the bankruptcy court. that's going to terminate an agency agreement and fulfillment of the contract. Well, again, I wanted to keep this short, sweet, to the point, but you need to know these ways that an agency can be terminated. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. I hope you'll go to globalrealestateschool.com. Check out some of our resources we have there. We have some great study aids you can purchase. Like us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram page as well. Try to be on social media. Hey, find me on LinkedIn and let's network and connect that way as well. And I'm on Twitter at John Mayfield. So you can also check out the Business Tech Guy. I've got some videos on YouTube, and I'm going to be doing more tech videos in the very near future. We're working on that as well. But in the meantime, remember how an agency can be terminated, okay? Death or incapacity, destruction, condemnation, expiration, mutual agreement, breach, such as abandonment, court order, the principal files bankruptcy, and fulfillment. And please never forget that agency agreements are between the broker and the client, the principal. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you make it a great day.